Hello once more. We are now into having you dismantle and reassemble Beckett burner. As you see, Beckett burner on it. Most of the parts now are Beckett as well. Used to be a lot of Honeywell, but now they're making a lot of their own stuff. Even the pump has become a Beckett product. The same with the motor. So on each of our exercises, you will have a paper that you will need to fill out. This is the one for the Beckett. Different exercises. One of the things they ask for, what make is it? It's a Beckett. And then down here in the rating plate, you'll see that it's an AFG, model AFG. Those are things that you'll need to know, okay? On this one as well, you have different parts, and you have to go back to a page that's missing and find the parts and then put the numbers beside it. We'll make sure you have one with all the names on it when you come to class. Let's get started here with dismantling this. We're going to take it down to bare bones basically, and then you will be able to reassemble. So first we want to open it up. And this is what you'd normally do. The first part of this is when you're doing an annual maintenance. So you just loosen these clips off on the top. You do not take the screws out. You want to leave as many screws in as possible, because if you get all these screws out, then what goes where? And as well, they get kicked across the floor in the basement and can get lost, and then you spend a lot of time looking for them. So this is our transformer opening up, and as you can see, we have our yellow wire which goes to our CAD cell, and then we have our blue and white that are the 120 volts on it. But we're going to take our nozzle assembly out first. And with it, you need the 7/16 wrench. You loosen this off. And normally this shouldn't move, but somebody didn't tighten it down properly. Isn't that just lovely? Okay, so it's off completely now. Now this little lock nut here, when you're putting it back on, just put it on finger tight. It's just to hold it in place there. It's not meant to be tightened down with pliers or whatever other device you might use. So just take it off. And normally it would slip back over this copper pipe. These are bent badly. And then it's there for when you put it back together. Now once you have that off, then this will come out, the nozzle assembly will come out, just like that. Okay? So again, as we said, oil in here, out through the nozzle. So now we'll just set our burner aside for a moment, and we'll disassemble our nozzle assembly. So remember, nozzle wrench, get over. Oops, I didn't tighten that one up too much either. So we'll we have our nozzle out, and it's a 1.5 gallon 80-degree B. Okay. So in our sheet, you'll have to register that to see what it is. Okay. So we have that open. Now what you must remember about this is when you take this off, there's going to be oil in there. So I always hold it like this so that this is up and this is up. So there's no oil leaking out of there or leaking out of there. And then when you have it, you can just turn it and dump it in your bucket like that. So you don't have oil splashing all over you and all over the floor. We're going to take the electrodes out, I hope. So your 3/8 nut driver, they pop out. There you go. Put them in our bucket so we don't get lose them. All right. Let's take our primary control off now. And normally there are two screws on here to hold this on. On this one there's only one. Again, you don't need to take this screw out, just slide it back. If the other one was there, you have to slide it straight back and then lift it up. Right? So what we want to do with this is we want to disconnect our CAD cell. So it's disconnected, and then we can take it out of here completely. This is called our CAD cell assembly because the whole part is there. Our CAD cell, remember, is just this little point on the end. It comes apart. This is just a rubber to seal it off so there's no excess air going in there. Okay? Next, we're going to disconnect the transformer. And again, as we said, color coordinated, blue and striped blue and white, and then the white itself as well. That's not the one, so we get a different one. It's not that one, it's this one here. No. Still not the right one. Anyway, it doesn't matter on those whites, but it's helpful if you put them together, as you can see, side by side, and then when you take one off, you have them both. You don't have to go looking for them, but wasn't done on this one. So to remove our transformer, we take these two screws out here, and there we need a Phillips screwdriver. Boy, some of these are getting bad too, aren't they? Remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. And we will disconnect the other components here as well. This gray one is for our delayed oil valve. And then we have our orange one for the motor. White for the motor. And then we have our power, and the red one is the limit, okay? As I say, those of you who passed kindergarten should be able to put this together because we got our colors right there for us. Okay, let's disconnect our delayed oil valve. All we have to do is just unplug it, all right? On the motor, we're going to disconnect it, and we have two screws on the side, one here and one down there. And I believe those are 3/8 again. So unless somebody's really put them on tight, you can use your nut driver, which makes things easier. What you have to remember is we have this on a desk here, a work desk, but normally you can't move this around. You're the one that's got to move around to accommodate the burner and get the pieces off. This is the coupling that I was talking about previously. Again, the ends are color coordinated. You can see the little flat spot there, hopefully. This will give you a better, it's hard to tell on the gray one where it is, but it's up on this edge here. Okay? The green is always for the motor. The gray is for the pump. So again, we have a blower fan that was not put on properly, as we hear it squeaking away there. So I just raise it up just a little bit, and now look at it turn. Okay? So just remember, again, that Allen screw goes on the flat part, not on the rounded part, because again, it will loosen easier, and then you get this crazy noise again that the homeowner just does not like, because they hear it and they say, oh, money, that's going to cost me money. So that's your motor, burner motor, differentiate, burner motor. This here is a condenser, not a condenser, capacitor, my apology, a capacitor. So a capacitor is a unit that stores power, and so basically what it does, it gives a shot to the motor to get started, and then it dies out. So start capacitors, there's also run capacitors. These are only, what's the horsepower on this one? There it is, 1/7. 1/7 horsepower, so not very strong, and that's why they need a little shot to get going, because they're turning this, and they're also going to be turning the pump that we're going to take apart right now. Just before we do that, you saw the blast tube before, so that's just a very short one on this one, and then your nose cone here. They call it the blast tube because that's where the air is shoved up through there for ignition. What did I say about screws and kicking them all over the floor? Hope there's another one. All right, so we're going to take the pump off. We're going to leave the delayed oil valve on, because somebody again has looks like they've cross-threaded the nut to go on there. So nice, they've left the two sizes the same. So always loosen one, then loosen the other. Like, don't take it right out, and so there's our pump. You want to see our, so again, find the flat spot, and then find the flat spot on the motor. So when that motor starts up, then it's turning that shaft, which in turn turns the coupling, which in turn turns the pump and gets us up to at least 100 pounds per square inch pressure for our nozzle. Okay? But when you're putting these back together, make sure that they fit in. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to shove there, and they will not go together. Got to have them in that flat spot. The other thing, well, I want to show you while we're basically all apart here, is our adjustment for the air. This one here will move these little slots here, which adjusts the fine adjustment on our air. Up here on these bigger spots, you see how big they are? If you need a lot more air, then you have to open it up, okay? But most of the time, it's just a fine tune on your smaller ones. And quite often, this big one is closed right up, or pretty well right up. Okay. And we'll just tighten that on a little bit so that, oh, just tight. You don't want to break it. This here is called your flange, and this is where you're able to put this on the furnace and then have some nuts for the bolts that stick out and attach it to the furnace so it's solid there. Okay? Okay, well let's now reassemble this. We'll go with the pump first. So put it in on. Make sure you put the right side up. What happened here? Two screws in, tighten one up snug, check the other one, and then go back to the first one. Okay, so put that around that way. We'll plug in the delayed oil valve again. So that part is done. Then we'll put our motor back on, but we need to put this on, right, with it. So, if you get it in there, what have we forgotten? We've forgotten to put this on, our blower wheel. Not good. At least we caught it in time. So I've got it down there tight. I'm just going to raise it up that little bit. Screw in the flat spot. Tight, but don't kill it. Try this again. Go. Just to make sure you have your electrical line in the right spot as well. Otherwise it makes it difficult it won't be long enough to go on up there. So I turn this so that then the flat spot connects onto the pump and we can get things working the way they're supposed to. This is where I like to have the magnetic nut driver, because then it will stay on while I'm putting this together. There we go. Started. And then the other one should go easy. Always make sure they're going in straight and don't cross thread them. Makes life very miserable when you do that. If it's not going easily, then you know something's wrong. I know something's wrong right now because it's not going in square. There we go. Now I can turn it in without forcing it. Tighten the other one up again. And we're good. Oh, that's fine. Nope. Okay. Put this back up through. Let's put our transformer back on as well, and then we can hook our wires up all at the same time. We gotta find our screws in here. Let's put our electrical wires through first. We have a little more room first. Magnet is shot on that for whatever reason. Beautiful. So now we have all our wires, so we can get our primary control. And we can hook them up. So first ones I've got are the, I'm going to go to the other side and do the valve, and then I can work back towards myself. Yeah, okay. And now we come to the motor, which is orange and white. White goes on first, so just to keep things and finally our transformer. And what have we left to do? The CAD cell. So again, let's put it in there. Now on these, on the yellow ones, you got 2 yellows, so it doesn't make any difference which goes on which one. So just make sure they're on, that's all. Now we got to get our wires tucked neatly down in there. Put it back out there, and we slide it on. Got our little rubber. And Sean thinks we need the CAD cell as well to put in the CAD cell assembly, and he's absolutely right. Okay, so put that down so it's not interfering with anything. Just double check everything, make sure it's proper, and then we can go to our nozzle assembly. Let's put our nozzle back in, make it easier for ourselves. So these are the electrodes. So we put them in there roughly where we want them, and then we tighten it down just so we can still move them. And they'll stay in place. We want to be able to still move them, because we're going to use this to adjust our gap correctly, okay? So we put it on over the nozzle, shove it down as far as it'll go, and then we have this little knob here, so we put these down tight. So that they're just flush with the front of it and tight on each side of it, okay? And once we have that, then we can just give this another little bit of a turn to make sure it's tight. Take it off, and then we look at it. And just, we see that the electrodes are just a little bit in front of the nozzle. They're about 1/8 of an inch apart, and then from the center of the nozzle up to there, again, is, I think, just a little over 1/8 of an inch. It's supposed to be. Okay? As I say, once you've done a number of them, you can pretty much do it by eye, but it's always good to check so that you know you're not going to have a... Now we put our lock nut back on. Look at this. Okay, so we're just finishing up here. When you're putting these on, just make sure they go on straight. If they're going on straight, you can just turn them on with your finger. Once they get tight, you know, and then just tighten them up. Same with this one. Now these are small threads, small nuts, so you don't need to put all your brutal force to it. Just good and snug, because remember, there's at least 100 pounds pressure of oil on there, so we don't want it leaking either. All right. And then with this, we put our transformer back down. Just make sure the wires are not caught. Put our little tabs over, and tighten up the little screws, and we would hook up the thermostat wires, hook up our wiring. Bob's your uncle, and away we go. right, let's finish up with this Beckett burner. Just wanted to show you briefly the other relay on it. There we go. Whoever put this back together, they ran this CAD cell wire improperly. So we'll take it off and put it back on properly. That's one of the things we want you to look at. Looks like they've wired this up properly on this side. That's good. Okay, so remember we showed you before it had 3 wires. This would connect up to the power line coming from your limit control. The orange wire here is connected up to the motor and as well to the transformer. And then we have our commons back on the other side. And there would also be a white wire coming from the power that would hook up to this as well. Okay, so quite a bit different from the other one. As I mentioned before, you do have your wiring diagram right on the front of it. You just have to look at it a bit to make sure you're realizing there's 2 parts to it. One side is your 24 volts and your CAD cell, and then the other side is your 120 voltage. So just look at it and see what make sure you're aware of what's happening with that, okay? Now in this, there is a spot for this to go up through, just like that. And then we've got to put our wires back down. They fit in there nicely. Yep, I thought. There we go. Okay, so then we tighten up the screws. So we won't hook these back up because the wires they'd have to be stripped a little bit so they fit properly. But again, they go on the FF. Always the yellow wires to the FF. Excellent. Okay, so that will conclude our Beckett, and we'll move on to our Riello for the next section.